Good afternoon, and it's a pleasure to be here at the Milano Wine Week. I'm Matteo D'Agostino, marketing manager at the Vivaldo, and I'm here with Gianfranco Zanon, the enologist. And so, therefore, we are greeting all the people here in Milan and also in New York and in London. So a special greetings to Matteo Bolla, who is in New York, together with our Colangelo friends. And well, let's say that we can start this journey that we have defined, blending tradition and innovation, which is the motto of our winery. So respecting the tradition, Gianfranco, right? But still looking to the future through innovation. So these are our distinctive characteristics. So talking about Valdo, well, let's start from the territory. So we are in Italy, northeast of Italy, and specifically in the Veneto region. And in the Veneto region, we have the Treviso province, where we have the Valdobbiadene, Conegliaco, Prosecco Superiore, DOCG area. So Valdo, this is part of the Valdobbiadene name. Valdo is a historic winery located in Valdobbiadene, established in 1926, and it is located on the Prosecco Hills, which have been recognized UNESCO World Heritage in 2019. So a great recognition for this area, and because this award, this recognition, this acknowledgement has been the fruit of human labor and the value of the territory. So talking about Valdo, well, it is an important winery established in 1926 with a very special history. Well, because the first name was not Valdo, but the first name was Società Anonima Vini Superiori. Why that? Because this was the initiative of four local entrepreneurs, four people working, having different jobs, but who had a passion about Prosecco and Cartizze wines. And starting in 1926, they met the Bolla family from Verona, a family that has a long tradition of wine production in the Verona area, and they started collaborating. And at a certain point, they established a company at the end of the 20s, and they changed the name into Valdo. So Sergio Bolla is the father of our current CEO, is our founder, and as a matter of fact, we have a special cuvée dedicated to him, and he was the one who, after the Second World War, gave impetus to the expansion of the winery. So therefore, we had an enlightened entrepreneurial spirit, focused first on the commercial sides and then on the winery, with a spirit of innovation and collaboration, strict collaboration with the enological part, in order to innovate and produce interesting wines, special wines for the market. So we can see the historic steps of Valdo evolution starting from the 60s. We have the commercial expansion, which brought Prosecco to start being served on in Italy. And here you see an ad from Milan, because Valdo was one of the first companies investing in communication as well. And we come to the 80s with the very first expansion process to Germany, United States, and Japan. And subsequently, we have the experimentation, innovation phase, typical of Valdo in the 80s. We have the Cuvée Boy. Cuvée Boy, maybe Gianfranco, you can add something in relation to this. This is an iconic wine for Valdo, for its relation to catering because of its distinctive characteristics. Yes, Cuvée Boy is the pioneer of the current rivers. And so in addition to Conegliano Valdobbiano, we have vineyards, we have an area where that was used to give consumers a very special product, the Glera vineyard. So with very distinctive characteristics every year, but localized in single vineyards. So therefore, and then we come to the 90s, where we have this very important concept of the cuvée for Valdo, because it was the first to introduce it in Italy, as a matter of fact. And let me say that it reached a peak with the cuvée dedicated to the founder, and this is a Spumante dedicated to Sergio Bolla, and this is the first Prosecco that can be conceived with the concept of a cuvée, 90% of Glera, and this is assembled with 10% of Chardonnay with 3 months in barrique, second step and third step, and we have a very special Spumante that is not just a simple aperitif, easy aperitif, but something more. And thanks to the structure donated by the Chardonnay, can be combined with other food recipes, and we combined it also with main courses. And in the past 20 years, so in 2004, the experimentation phase carried out by Valdo continued with the first Prosecco on the market with the secondary fermentation in the bottle. And this is a very important step for the winery, because this is an enological challenge, because we have a Charmant Martinotti process, but here we have a classical method. And this, of course, requires a completely different processing in the field, in the vineyard, and also in the winery. But the market was not ready at that point, so therefore the product needed to be explained. And we are fully committed to it, and I believe that the satisfaction also at the international level is being harvested. Then 2010. Well, this is a very important project by Valdo called Origine. And this is a sort of a vintage marketing project, as I call it. And here, the intention was to recover the original assembly of the Prosecco of the 20s, 30s, so understanding the style of the Prosecco of that time, of course, modernizing it from a menological point of view, and with a bottle that is inspired by the Liberty style, Art Nouveau in France, and so on and so forth. So this is a successful project by Valdo, and in the past 10 years, this is a Spumante that has really reached a great satisfaction. So reaching our time, we have in 2017 the first organic Prosecco. And of course, this meant also a different mindset on the side of the winery, both in terms of organic growing and also in terms of approach to sustainability. And to date, 2020, you see here the Marca Oro. This is a Valdo iconic label, and this is our yellow label. And this is a Prosecco that is leading in Germany and Italy. This is one of the most appreciated Spumanti, and this represents the gold standard for Prosecco, and therefore this is the benchmark for the entire market, and to us, and especially for us when we approach a new market. So today, Valdo, today. And we have new products, new things to share with you with regard to sustainability. And I would like you, Gianfranco, to mention the investments made in the winery to modernize equipment in order to increase energy efficiency. You see the photovoltaic plant on the roof of the winery. I don't know whether you wanted to add any additional information with regard to this? Well, with regard to sustainability, well, in this case, we should not only talk about energy efficiency, but sustainability is becoming a key word. This is a very important topic, and we have been training ourselves in-house, and now we are communicating it also outside. Of course, we cannot, wake up in the morning and say, I will operate according to green technology, etc. But it is necessary to do it step by step. So therefore, we need to raise awareness, first of all, among our workers, our collaborators. This is key for us. And of course, there are also additional steps in terms of circular economy, energy saving, and also social attention to the community, and what we've been experiencing in the past 2 years, what we've seen in terms of initiatives undertaken without, advertise them too much. But due to the pandemic, of course, we have seen many crises, many difficult situations, and we have provided our contribution. So therefore, Valdobbiadene is an area that starts with a great contribution on our side, and Valdo is a winery that is 70% autonomous in generating its energy demand. And actually, this is very much important for us because the use of energy is very extensive. So therefore, also in the company, we monitor water consumption as well. And the consumption of paper, and of course, thanks to digitalization, we are reducing the use of paper. But still, we have a long way to go. But I believe that the direction that we are being paving in the last 4 or 5 years is the right one. So here, this slide is dedicated to you, Gianfranco. Well, you've been monitoring 32 harvests in Valdobbiadene. So 32 years of activity as enologist in Valdobbiadene. And of course, you contribute to our company with your passion for these Spumanti wines, and you are a very important guide for us. And of course, we see it, we can witness it because you follow us from the vineyards to the bottle. So very quickly on me, well, it's only 3 harvests. I'm a marketing manager, so I have a backstage job. But let's start with the with a wine tasting. So the lineup includes 8 wines. We are going to start with the Marca Oro Prosecco DOC. Then we are going to have the Prosecco DOC Organic Brut and the Cuvée 1926 Valdobbiadene DOCG Extra Dry, Oro Puro Valdobbiadene Superiore di Cartizze, numero 10 Classical Method Valdobbiadene, Origine Brut, and Prosecco DOC, and a unique Valdo wine. Okay, thank you. Thank you, Matteo. Yes, our journey today is varied in terms of sugar residue, production, pipeline, etc. But this is very interesting because you will have a chance to know the extensive product range of Valdo with more important productions. And here we have the greater attention because our consumers, domestic consumers, are the most critical because they drink wine, the same wine for years. So therefore, our focus on this type of consumers is very strong. Well, let's start with our Marca Oro, the yellow label, the brand in a brand, and we present it in the brut version, which is exported also to the United States, while in the British market, this is defined as extra dry. There is a slight difference in terms of sugar residue. In the brut is 12 grams per liter. In the extra dry version, this is 15 grams per liter. So therefore, we have different nuances. Fruity, the fruitier, the extra dry, more flowery, the brut version. Let me add something. So if everything is smooth, so in New York you are tasting the brut version, in London you're tasting the extra dry version, right? Okay, fine. And it's clear that this is our flagship product in Italy and in the world. And this is the version that allows the consumer to understand the immediacy of the glare version. So this is never banal, but it's very easy to drink, immediacy, and that is translated into the fact that maybe you want to drink just one glass, but still with responsible drinking, maybe you can add a second or third glass. So a toast to you. Cheers. Cin cin, as we say here in Italy. In the brut version, of course, you can observe the white flowers, wisteria, and the fruity notes are also evident. Maybe you can observe them later. But they are also very important because they make the product from an olfactory, sensory perspective more complex. And with our Spumanti wines, of course, we try to find a right balance between the olfactory perception and what we perceive at the palate. Because we do not look for an extremization of the fruity notes, but we try to find this balance to provide, which is providing more elegance when drinking it. And therefore, also in the mouth, we need both at the palate and also in the olfactory aftertaste, we needed to find this balance because otherwise the product would be perceived as imbalanced. And definitely, this is a type of wine that is being consumed as an aperitif in the first place, and but we wanted to promote it as a wine that can be enjoyed at any time. And I believe that this is something that we can all appreciate when we taste it, especially after the COVID-19 pandemic, the fact that we can appreciate all together at any time. And the Marca Oro, thanks to our knowledge of the market, in fact, Marca Oro adapts to the different flavors of consumers, to market flavors, and it is our strategy for this label, the fact that we can adopt it according to the market where we sell it. And it is a very pleasant wine. And the second one here, we make a leap forward because we jump into the organic, and this is the Glare Vineyard. This is an organic certified vineyard, and this is a journey that we started in 2016, and we presented it in 2017 at the Vinitaly trade show. But this is the result of the previous years. All of our products start from our experience, expertise that we follow and develop over the years. Through experimentation. This organic type, we present it in the Brut version with sugar residue amounting to 11 gram per liter. And in this case, this is the closest to the Glera vineyard. So we do not use additives of any kind, only a few vegetable ones in order to keep it as clean as possible, so that through the organic production we wanted to provide consumers with something different. What is the key difference? In the organic world, you know that it's not possible to use chemicals or additives except for natural ones or like copper, sulfur, etc. And therefore the result, of course, the result is something different, but the agronomic production is also different. So we can do it only in specific areas, and you should consider that with regard to the Prosecco denomination, only 5% of the overall, the total production is certified as organic. So therefore this percentage is still very low. And as I was saying this morning, our idea of vine growing is to provide an income to vine growers. Of course, we should pave the way of organic production, but especially in our area that goes from Monferrato to Coglio areas, passing through our hills. Of course, the organic production is rather committing, especially for such a generous vineyard like a Glera. It would be easier for a Chardonnay or a similar vineyard or Pinot Nero, where you can reduce production and you can pay more attention to the single fruits. And therefore, in this case, we have a greater, broader spectrum of the vegetation. So here it is much more difficult to protect the grapes. The product presents minerals with this flavor, sapid flavor, and it is reminiscent of powder of this terroir and basic elements of vine growing, but still it's very fresh. And in this case, for the organic Prosecco, in the glass, the product meets those requirements, presents those specificities that so that the consumers may also recognize the original wines. So when I taste it, well, I always also observe the richness of the bouquet. There are no defects typical of organic wines and natural wines. It is still very well balanced with this. Whether these notes of the minerals donating a very special characteristic to it, a distinctive characteristic. Yes, because with regard to the survey that we have carried out internationally, the perception of consumers with regard to organic products. Well, normally consumers do not trust organic products, and they also perceive organic products as of lower quality, and if then too costly, and the price, considering the price too high. And if you think that there is an increase by 25%, the additional activities that needed to be done on the vineyards, and also because there is a reduction in the yield, especially in very critical years, because this may become even more difficult in processing it. So therefore, this translates all into the trade, and therefore all this may not be perceived by consumers properly. And therefore, it is easier to cultivate vineyards organically in Sicily, in the Sicily region, more than in our regions, because the climate makes the difference, and therefore costs, nevertheless, are similar. And here, in our area, well, we have this difference, and actually the climate is changing, as we know, from continental to subtropical. And of course, this is a challenge that we have ahead of us. So let's taste the third one. And this is our rain, let me say. Because I should remind you, Valdo production in the DOCG represents 10%. So we certify 10% of all the grapes produced in the denomination, DOCG denomination. And here we have the Cuvée 1996. This is dedicated to the founding year of Valdo. And this is the flagship wine. Yes, Valdo still is an historic company located in the center of Valdobbiadene. So the village developed around the Valdo winery. And the extra dry type, both for DOC and DOCG, is the most sold for both types, and also including Conegliano Valdobbiadene. They include the extra dry label. Why that? Because consumers recognize in this type of wine slightly sweeter, a greater roundness, and therefore better characteristics, olfactory characteristics. To us, 1926 represents a very special selection that we produce. Almost all of our products may be defined as all vintage wines. Well, this is an extra dry version that, given its olfactory and taste-related characteristics, make us understand the key characteristics, distinctive characteristics of Valdo production. So richness with this apricot, peach, especially for the 2020. So some flowery notes, wisteria. Wisteria is very much important for the olfactory part, and it invites you to drink. So this roundness, sweetness, even if we're talking about an extra dry with a sugar residue of 16 gram per liter, still is very evident, but we can perceive the harmony of the product, the roundness of the product. So research starts with a very slow sparkling process that lasts 2 to 3 months with yeast, and then 5 months without yeast. And therefore, both the Prosecco denomination includes 30 months of fermentation. So maybe we have a little bit exaggerated. Why that? Because we want consumers to appreciate these bollicine, which are never disturbing the palate, that can be drunk as an aperitif, of course, but that can also be enjoyed while eating finger food with appetizers or in combination with Latin South American cuisine. Yes, it's very interesting. This is a product that also, for those who've been drinking it for years, well, they are still drinking it. So now it's getting warmer, and I can perceive tropical fruits. Yes. Before tasting, so with these glasses, I was a little bit worried because these glasses are very weird, let me say, to serve bollicine, but instead they are good because we are also observing, perceiving olfactory notes that are very distinctive of the wine. Okay, next wine. So with the Cuvée 1926, this is a wine that meets the taste of the market with its sugar residue, and it's bringing great satisfaction, also commercially speaking. Consumers like and appreciate it. So I believe, well, since we have so many products, so maybe, Gianfranco, now we should go up a very special hill, the Cartize Hill. And yes, in the Cornegliano d'Altobiadene denomination, we have this small heart, 107 hectares. And this area was defined also by Napoleon, because Napoleon was here, and he divided the area into Cartize high and Cartize low, high area, low area. Why that? Because we have a microclimate and a microterroir which is very rich in oligo elements and microelements, manganese and magnesium, giving this fruity notes and sapid flavor. And we are presenting it in the dry version, which is the classical version, because Cartize in dialect is Gardis, great, because these grapes were harvested very late, and the wine was a sweet wine, very offered in the on special occasions to celebrate events by the farmers, because here we have farmers very much rooted in this area. You see here in the picture, they had the farm, their house, and everything. This was, as the South Tyrolean people would say, that this is called a maso. So a farm, including a cottage and everything. So they had animals, they had cheese production, they had chicken, etc. So a true farm, a real farm. So a closed circuit. A closer circuit. Now everything has changed. Instead of the instead of the stalls, we have the wineries. So where's the magic? Where's the magic about Cartizze? Well, also with regard to the market price, this is reaching also the same level as champagne. What is happening on that hill? So the exposure of the terroir. Yes, the terroir. We have this forced natural ventilation during the day and the night, but there is also a commercial fact, Cartize, a name. This is a certified production, and therefore the product is there. This is just for this area, and of course, this is going to remain unaltered. This is consumed mainly in northern Italy. Some bottles are being exported to the United States and Russia, but this is limited. It is important to make consumers understand that this is part of the Prosecco world, but this is unique. This is a hill, a hill. It identifies a hill. But in our world, we are still far from opening this gap. So from 3-4 euro worth wine to 12, 15 euro worth of wines. But so trade and consumers, if they have to pay too much, they are a little bit concerned. With the champagne, we have excellent champagne at 30, 40 euros, but we also have champagne at 300, 400 euros. So therefore, also in this case. Unfortunately, I cannot translate because the gentleman is not talking into a microphone. A question is being asked from the public, but there is no microphone, so the interpreter cannot translate. So I do remember Cartizze from the past when, well, I have become a wine expert later on. So because I was working in the advertising sector, so launching different products, and but later, at that time, it was difficult. And I came to know Cartizze when I was launching also Baulig product. Okay, but Cartizze, I liked it from the very beginning. I do remember in a course of Ripa Ticinese at the Operetta Club, it was one of the hot spot at the end of the 70s and 80s. And they offered Cartizze. And in New York, so I went to the Bellini restaurant. So I was living in New York in 1993, and I have been living there for a couple of months. And there was this Bellini restaurant, and Cartizze was really very bad, you know. And as a matter of fact, I reproached the director of the restaurant and I told him, Cartizze, what is this? What kind of wine is this? So I was reproaching him badly. Why that? Because Cartizze, you know, French people know, because they have a different culture, they had Charles Magne, the greater, and they have a completely different culture. So they have. They know wines. They have been knowing wines all their entire life, and well, again, In the world of Cartizze, instead, there is a different story. So you have a very important, excellent heritage, and this and the value should be promoted. Yes, in fact. So Cartizze is a peak, definitely the peak of our diamond. So the fact that Conegliano d'Altobiano is a UNESCO heritage right now. So the important thing is that now we need to create a collaboration among vine growers, wine producers, and we pay a toll because with regard to champagne wines or champagne similar wines, we have different years. We have so we can have a champagne which are 15 years old, etc. Then we have a Prosecco DOC instead, and we have entered this world of bollicine. But in the tradition of Spumanti, but we had first the champagne and Moscato. We had these two types. So either sweet Spumante or the classical method of champagne. But we instead, we have a nice we have created a new consumption, fortunately or unfortunately, very democratic in terms of figures. And in fact, we have, of course, run after the growth, and we have a little bit lost the focus on increasing the value of the peculiarities and the special, distinctive aspects. Okay, yes, I believe that now we can continue with the next wine, which is classical method. And yes, of course, with the Valdobbiadene, yes, I believe that communication will become effective and more efficient in the future because now we know that we have to increase the value of the distinctive characteristics of our wines. So here we present to you our classical method, 100% Glere, Valdobbiadene DOCG. This is 2019. 2019. We are marketing it right now. This is a classical method, rather quick, fresh, because it maintains the distinctive characteristics of the denomination, and also because we have a production rules that are rather stringent, but still with a key determination in growing the shelf life of the product and giving international consumers as well the possibility to become more aware that this wine can now compete with other wines all over the world. So yes, the characteristics are the wine is very pleasant. So we have a completely different type, but I believe that we can reach the goal. And Gianfranco, here we can tell the story of Valdobbiadene DOCG, a different story actually. So here we have different years with a 10 to 12 month fermentation, and we have years of Glera classical method that are very different, and also at the international level. This type of wine is being increasingly appreciated, and this is a rare, unique case, I should say, in international contests specialized on champagne. This is also appreciated. And especially for significant markets important for the classical method champagne, like Japan, for example, also they are appreciating a lot this type of Valdobbiadene DOCG. Prosecco Superiore, and soon we are going to launch it also in the United States. So it will be available in the United States, and we hope to go into this direction, including storytelling, including the possibility of increasing the value of this denomination, because this is our mission, because we are rooted in Valdobbiadene since 1926, so we should do this because this is part of our DNA. And in fact, we needed to combine tradition and innovation, but still respecting our origins. So therefore, a classical method with 10 to 12 months of aging. But this is 100% Glera grape variety. So we didn't include any other process to enrich the wine. We wanted to be integer in our communication, making the consumers understand that Valdobbiadene DOCG can be produced and we can have a classical method that over the years becomes increasingly important. And yesterday I had a tasting session with a French customer of ours, and I made him taste this product, but 2016, and he was very interested in it. So we're not selling this 2016 product, but nevertheless, we can keep it, preserve it, and if the year allows us, if the year is the right one, so the bottle can be preserved also over time. Well, so why number 10? Well, because this is the highest score for the Valdo Spumante school. And this is also the number of, I don't know, Roberto Baggio, the football player. So everybody has a number 10. Okay, and with regard to the months of aging, well, also in this case, already in 2011, we carried out an experimentation with 36 months, and since 2017, we have produced an additional product, the Tenuta Pradase, which is a single vineyard at the center of Valdobbiadene in the Cima village. And then we have upgraded it to 24 months. And well, it depends on the production rules. The production rules are very stringent, and you know that all wines with a nomination, they have to be controlled by a tasting committee, ensuring the minimum quality, both in terms of organoleptic elements and chemical elements. And therefore, it is also very much important to consider the fact that, we're working on this actually, we cannot exaggerate this part too much, because otherwise we are going to fail to respect the production rules. But up to 36 months, we are still working on it, as I said. Well, the product seems to be very interesting. Yes, more interesting, Gianfranco, but let's add that this includes the right balance between the Prosecco consumers know already and its evolution. Because as you said, we do not want to produce anything extreme. We wanted to keep the distinctive characteristics, and we wanted to also maintain the accessibility that you also mentioned before. Yes, sure. We are talking about a basic vine that has a relatively low structure. We have also carried out experimentation on the vineyards, but the quality is different. It transcends the glera vine. So so these characteristics of pleasantness cannot be maintained with 100, 110 quintals per hectare because we would have a Chardonnay. But we are Conegliamo Valdobbiadene. We wanted to keep our denomination, and I believe we should increase and emphasize this value. And of course, we have a long way to go. Okay, so we can taste the next wine. Okay, this is no longer a DOCG denomination. So we have seen the extra dry version, which represents the most frequent denomination. So we have talked about Cartizze and what Cartizze means. And with regard to innovation, we have presented our number 10 classical method for Valdobbiadene DOCG. Prosecco Superiore. So now we have another interesting story. This is called Origine. So the name in it per se is evocative. This is a project that we have started in 2010. And here we have the claim, pride for the past and passion for the future. And this is also the title of our masterclass. And so therefore, this completes the circle, tradition and innovation. And here we have a rediscovery of Prosecco before the development of the denomination, because with the denomination we had a control over the grapes varieties with 85% minimum of glera, but of course then later on everything was standardized, making it easily recognizable. So what we did with the Valdo Origine was to rediscover our origin. So Valdo was, as we said, established in the 20s and developed in the 30s and 40s. So we tried to recreate that idea of Spumante in that period of time. So selecting the grapes varieties that were used, and from a storytelling perspective and a marketing perspective, this is an Art Nouveau, Art Deco styled bottle that tells the origin of Valdo. So both in terms of packaging and both in terms of wine, here we have a unique product. Gianfranco? Yes. This exercise allows us to from an olfactory perspective, we note the aromatic notes in the first place. And you should consider that in the 1900 we have the Prosecco grape variety on our hills, Verdisia, Pereira, and Bianchetta. So these were the four grape varieties cultivated on our hills, and the Conegliano, Bianchetta in the Valdobbiadene, Pereira, and Prosecco a little bit everywhere. Prosecco, as the grape variety, dominated the area at the beginning of the 19th century because it provided a steady production, and it provided this gentle note, and with this special appeal that the other grape varieties, due to different quality and fluctuating yields, could not provide. Then Pereira was then also, let's say, abandoned because of infestation. But actually, we did this in order to go back to the origin. And so the sugar residue is 12 gram per liter, giving it this roundness, and also with this citrus fruit notes. And this is the result of a blending of grape varieties where the glera is the it plays the major role, but it's not the only one. So therefore, it's very pleasant, very scented, but still very distinctive and unique. Because one of our missions, also in terms of communication, also in terms of marketing, we want to bring to the consumers products that are different, distinctive, and in some ways also recognizable. Yes, and as a matter of fact, yes. This is exactly the characteristic of this spumante. The beautiful side of our work is the fact that we write this label this year, and the next year we will have a different wine because we are going to have different stories and there are rules, of course. Glera dominates in terms of highest percentage, but the other ones are more aromatic, Pereira specifically, and therefore. And Gianfranco, let me add that if we had a written recipe, an enologist would no longer have a job because it would be just a question of following the recipe. So what I became aware in the last 2 years, so there are so many people making projections, but then projections are not validated, and therefore, for example, the first 15 days in September, the weather was very warm, and then the weather changed, and therefore projections are useless, and therefore we need to wait until we harvest. Okay, so we have come to a point in which we have a paintbrush of pink, so rosé. And this is something that we have been working on in the last 2 years. At the end of 2020, we have had the possibility of producing and marketing Prosecco Rosé. 85% Glera and 15% Pinot Nero. And of course, let me say, we know that the period was a little bit difficult, but we were ready, and also our consumers were ready. As a matter of fact, our consumers welcomed this spumante in a very positive way. And of course, this is also part of the fact that there is a trend for rosé wines right now. This is a trend that is becoming increasingly successful thanks to the rosé wines of the Provence region. We have rosé wines in Italy that are rebirthing in a certain way, and I believe that this one can also contribute to having also all the rosé wines stand out. So rosé wine is also an icebreaker, and this is very positive. Yes, in terms of a consortium, we have carried out a research. You know that in the production rules for Prosecco DOC, we have Pinot Nero, and this is in order to obtain a white wine, we have to include a smaller percentage of the red grapes, and therefore let me say, there was a commercial opportunity, and also in order to provide a broader range, so we had to modify the production rules with a red vinification and with a 10%, 15%. This could be included in the latter one, and therefore, instead of 30 days, we should have a 60 days of sparkling fermentation process, and in some way, even if this can provide a premium quality, and for this reason, the rosé bottles should include the millesimato term. So therefore, it is mandatory to also specify the year. And after a 2-year experimentation, because we were talking about this in 2018, so we thought of offering a Prosecco Rosé with 20 days on years and a 10% blending with Pinot Nero. Why that? Because we wanted to give the consumers this peach blossom petals, pink nuance. So therefore, to maintain this elegance, but of course, this Pinot Nero with this very special vinification process and etc. It is very much important, that Pinot Nero is a very difficult grape variety. Glera is much easier, and Pinot Nero is instead very complicated. And first of all, the grapes are important, and if the grapes is mature, of course we need time. So not only with Pinot Nero, we wanted to obtain this very delicate pink hue. So fermentation, so to increase the red color, but without that, this could go to the detriment of the distinctive characteristic of Glera, so this roundness and elegance. So, commercially speaking, well, this is an opportunity that we need to seize, of course. Of course, we offered, we recommended 100 days. The quality and also the stability of the color, which is also something to consider, especially if the bottle is transparent. The color is important. If this is grown in Veneto and Friuli, Venezia Giulia, sometimes, this wine was not appreciated properly, so maybe it was considered just as at the same level as the other wines. For example, the South Tyrolean wines, or the wines produced in the area of Pavia. And in any case, the consortium did a great job with regard to communication. Sorry, but the other gentleman is not talking into the microphone, so the interpreter cannot translate. Um, No. Eh. Mm. Okay. There is no competition. So these are two different things. So the fortune of our country is the climate. So therefore, of course, we have a competitive edge also in terms of culture, and we should leverage on this. We have to be aware of this. Well, actually, I was talking about the enological culture. So we work every day, and we work on a steady upgrade. And this is the reason why, yes, in fact, this is the reason why I was saying that here we do not have competition, any competition. So we still have another rosé wine, and this is Valdo cuvée, a unique cuvée of Glera from the Veneto region. We have a combination of Glera, the typical grape variety for Prosecco, and Nerello Mascalese from Etna, Sicily. So this is something that a cooperation that started more than 20 years ago. This is a cuvée that we have developed, and we are the only one to have developed it. So combining the north and the south of Italy, so an Italian, totally Italian cuvée. And we like to develop special design projects, as a matter of fact. And here we have different percentages of Glera and Nerello Mascalese. And here we have both New York and London connected, a city in the US and a city in the UK, because, again, we have bottles redesigned by artists, and we change it every 2 or 3 years. And we have a very interesting crossroad between Italy and the US, because we are selling in the United States an edition that is called Jungle. This rosé brut with this bottle designed by an Italian artist, Fabrizio Sclavi, and this is sold in the United States. Then, with the same cuvée, we have another bottle developed by a New York artist, Cissy Johnson, an American artist and designer. And this bottle has been launched in Italy. So we have crossed in a certain way these two worlds and crisscrossed this world. And we asked this American artist to interpret this world of Italy, how Italy is perceived abroad. And I believe that in both cases we see a great job accomplished here. These are the special editions, and maybe Gianfranco, you can also add something with regard to the enological characteristics, because already from the glass we can see that this is something different. This is no longer the Prosecco denomination. This is a generic Spumanti denomination. So with a brut sugar residue, 12 gram per liter. And here we have this Nerello Mascalese that for the past 20 years is an important, actually, winery providing the product exclusively to us. So therefore, we have worked together in order to fine-tune all the different characteristics and also, I believe that so this year they anticipated the harvesting by 10 days because at the end of August, beginning of September, it was so hot in Sicily that it was necessary to harvest the grapes earlier because otherwise the grapes would have been dehydrated. So here we have a Pinot Nero, and this has been developed also over the years in Sicily, and this has been developed to provide excellent rosé wines, but also very interesting red wines. Also in that area, they are producing Nerello-based interesting wines, but we've been developing this collaboration for the past 25 years successfully. And so this is a collaboration that unites Italy and bring and has as a result a spumante that can be enjoyed for domestic consumption, but also internationally. As Matteo was saying, this is the fifth special edition in the past 7-8 years dedicated to special markets. And of course, this product has a stronger color nuance, golden and with more minerals and with a more sapid flavor. Which is persistent, and this is the distinctive characteristic of this Nerello. A question. Apart from the difference, the product is the same, right? Apart from the different bottles, the product is the same, right? The wine is the same. Yes, it's only a question of the packaging, and this is for communication purposes. Again, the gentleman is not talking into the mic, so the translation cannot be provided. Okay, thank you for your attention, and so now, if you have any questions, we are ready to provide you with any explanations. So this has been a journey discovering wines with the distinctive characteristics. I hope you liked it. I hope you had the chance to appreciate the different types. And so maybe from here or from New York and London. There's a question from London. What is the percentage of Nerello Mascarese? Approximately 70%, 30% Glera and 70% Mascalese. So this is a rosé spumante wine with all the rosé characteristics. Any questions from New York? So the future. What do you think? Are you going to keep at this affordable price, or are you going to increase the price to approach the champagne wines? This is our concern. Yes, the answer to you. This is our daily concern. I'm the fifth generation of a family deeply rooted in the Valdo area. But I can tell you that we needed to learn more as to how to sell our products better. Maybe we should learn more how to increase the value, because only when we have an increased value we can have also a more interesting future. Because of course we need to ride the trend, but only if we have an increased value we can also increase the culture. In these 2 past years, we have been hampered. When we talk about Conegliano Valdobbiadene, I should have a picture of the hills, because your perception of the product is different. As a matter of fact, when I show the picture of the hills, well, the perception of the consumers is different. I can tell you, really. This is a very interesting survey, because tasting starts with vision, with sight. And in these 2 past years, we've been hampered because, of course, there was no possibility to have consumers visit our territory. And the recognition of the as an UNESCO heritage area, of course, will allow us to make our area more visible among internationally, I mean. So therefore, also in this case, now we are going to leverage on this. We need to circulate knowledge, but of course, this does not mean that we need to neglect the hard work that we do in the field. And so, this is the message that I would like a take-home lesson. For the global market. This is a difficult process for sure, but we need to do it on a daily basis. Other questions? So thank you for participating. Thank you. See you next time.